Good, good evening. Welcome everyone to Canned with Tinnuts. We're live right now on the Tinnuts Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Tinnuts, the Tinnuts Instagram page, the Tinnuts YouTube page. And of course, for those of you who've joined us through Zoom, we're also live right here. Remember, you can chat with us through any of these platforms and we'll be able to field your questions. And we just take another 2 minutes and kind of allow others to join. So hang in there with us while this stream goes live everywhere. And we'll begin with today's session titled Mixology. How did we lose protection between bars? And here that's a pun that I realize not everyone might get, but I come from a bar, which is a bar of lawyers. And my barman today, Pranav Thakkar, comes from the other side of this bar. We don't meet too often, but today should be an interesting conversation. So hang in there, give us another 30 seconds, and we'll begin the discussion.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you
Do
perfectly.
you want me to add my Insta page to your Tinnuts?
Um,
I don't know.
sure, you can do that. You can share the stream as well, I think.
One sec. Let me just send you a request on your Insta page. So then my followers would know that I am also kind of live. Did you get a request on your Insta?
We should. All right, I think we're ready to go. We are live with Canned with Tinnuts. We're streaming right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And for those of you serious attendees who've joined in with Zoom, thank you for joining us. I'm here today to discuss mixology with Pranav Thakkar, the CEO of Bar Solutions LLP, the Wedding Bartenders, and it gives me an immense pleasure to interact with Pranav in this new role of mine as managing partner of Tinnuts, now moving on to the legal side, where normally I would be rubbing shoulders with Pranav at a festival across the country, taking on operational roles on some of those events. So thank you for being here, Pranav. It's amazing that to have you here, and I look forward to this discussion.
But honestly, it's pleasure's all mine. I mean, I was looking forward to, like you correctly said, we've been part of a lot of festivals, rubbing shoulders, and running between the bars and the backstage and stuff, managing what we've been both used to like doing. So yeah, pleasure to be a part of your show, man.
Yeah. Is it odd for you to see me in a shirt and talking about law?
Yeah, I never knew that you had a legal angle to it. We've known each other. I can call you that. We've been friends. We gradually became friends over the time. But when the last we met and you told me about the legal angle that you are exploring, but now I would rather take it in a very positive way, that I know someone who definitely helped me if I'm in some sort of trouble. I've always been there when you wanted some sort of alcohol, and we managed it out for you. But now, yeah, I mean, to know someone who always has your back in terms of a legal aspect, it really feels nice. And honestly, I didn't know that you had this angle to it. You had this side of your story where you were professionally looking forward to become a lawyer. I mean, I think that's the correct term. I'm also
Mhm.
wearing black, so law field sort of a thing. So it's just really nice to know this angle to it. And yeah, I mean, looking forward to understanding what you've been cooking all this while, and what does Tinnuts all about, and what do you plan to do ahead? I mean,
Yeah.
that would be a really nice thing.
Mhm. So just like I'll come to that, and I'll come to a few strategies that I'd like to propose to you today. But firstly, to most of our viewers, there are many titles that one can call a man behind the bar by, and they're known as mixologists, bartenders, sommeliers. So maybe if you could firstly kind of explain to us some of the differences, and then explain to us how these mixologists, these bartenders think. And here, I'd like you to step out of your entrepreneurial shoes and get into that bartender mixologist shoes and tell us how you think, how you create, and how you display your creations, offer your creations, and put up to services, um, that entire concept. And so, from concept to execution, I'd like you to kind of take our viewers here today through that
See,
journey.
what you correctly said, that there are a lot of names that a bartender is called. Someone calls him a bartender, someone calls him a mixologist, someone calls him a sommelier. And there are these various terms. Honestly, uh, it's either one side, that there's a bartender who gradually grows up. So there, when you finish a course, uh, you can't call yourself a bartender, because unless you don't know the basics of doing something, like live example, like until unless you don't practice law, you're not a lawyer. Even if you've learned, so until unless you don't start practicing about what bartending is, you really can't call yourself bartender, because you need to know the basics to go ahead. So once a student walks out of an industry, from a school, gets into an industry, there are about 70% of people who've done a course, probably an HM course, or I would say 60-40, 60% would have done, 40% wouldn't have done. So
Mhm.
you get into a job, you start learning your basics from, so you start becoming an assistant bartender, gradually moving up to become a bartender. Okay? The word mixologist has recently come up in the last, I would say, couple of years. It wasn't there before. When we started, it was just about some assistant bartender hai, then there's a senior bartender, there's a head bartender who's like the head of all of them, and then there is an assistant bar manager and probably a bar manager. These were the hierarchies then. Slowly, steadily, uh, the new age restaurants started coming in, the new age bars started coming, where people, uh, the the kind of stuff that people started doing, especially the bartenders, started getting them into the limelight. Bartenders were not at once upon a time looked really high. They were like, "Haan, theek hai, bartender hai." But now the respect for the bartending trade has been growing. The kind of stuff that bartenders do behind the bar, they get a chance to interact with the owners. They get a chance to interact with the guest one on one, which wasn't there. So slowly, steady, that mixologist word started coming out, because you get a chance to mix few drinks, evolve with time. You start getting to learn new things. People started traveling. Bartenders started traveling, and all this changed only after the social media gave its present really hard. What happened was that before, in our times, there was hardly a chance to get onto YouTube and watch some videos. But now every second, every bartender, not even second, every bartender is on YouTube. He has an Instagram page, he's on Facebook, he's doing stuff. So from a bartender, the word has grown to mixologist. When it comes to sommeliers, or when it comes to connoisseurs, there is a different exams that need to be given. There are different courses that need to be done. For example, a wine sommelier, there are levels of exams that he, like W said, there are different levels that he needs to pass to become a wine sommelier. There are, on the same line, there are different levels that a person needs to pass to become a whiskey connoisseur or a vodka connoisseur. That is a lot that goes in. It doesn't come with time, it comes with experience. You might spend about 15 years in the industry, uh,
Mhm.
and you don't have the relevant experience, you really can't be that. So time doesn't play an important role, the experience plays an important role. I have known bartenders who've been in the industry for about 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, but a 2-year-old bartender might be far more better than a 10-year-old guy, because all he's done, he spent time in the industry, he's not gained experience, he's not evolved with time. Evolving with time is something every single bartender needs to do. He needs to learn. He needs to. Someone today says that, okay, today being the CEO of a company, if I say that I know everything, my growth will stop. I wouldn't want to know any. And today I can proudly say that the trainers that we have in our academy, like a Royce or a Aditya or Ajinkya, they are far more people who, in terms of knowledge, are far more better than me. A 19-year-old guy who's a flair instructor with us, Arjun, he's far more flair bartender than what I was when I was 19,
Mhm.
because that guy puts in about 8 hours a day to practice flair, which
Mhm.
I don't. So moving on from the bartender, I've gone into the management angle to it. But yeah, to evolve with time, you need to keep learning, and that's how you will grow. So a bartender to a head bartender to a mixologist or sommelier, it all comes with experience, time, the kind of effort that you put in, and also with the knowledge that you try and grasp. Knowledge is not always about giving. You also need to start learning with time, that okay, this is what a junior will want to teach me. So that's some basic terms what bartenders are today called.
Mhm. So that brings me to an interesting part. I'd like to dwell on one of those words that you said, evolving.
Yes.
To me, it seems to be that process of evolution is a process of creation, that they're recreating, um, taking inspiration, looking to sources, redeveloping processes. Is, would you say that part of creation is really important for this bartender? And could you use that as um, a segue into taking us into the part of how bartenders think, how they serve, how they display?
See, evolve, as you said, evolve. You need to evolve with time.
Mhm.
Yes, and you correctly said that they need to keep learning. What happens is that today, all these bartenders, based on the kind, see, firstly, also it depends on what is it available. Today, if you go to some bars, uh, uh, thinking from the owner's point of view, he has is a different mindset in his mind that this is going to be a nightclub, this is going to be a restaurant, this is going to be a bar. So it gives a very the bartenders are very limited to the kind of sources they are available with. If a bartender doesn't get good fruits, good herbs, good spices, if he doesn't want to create his own recipe, his growth is going to be stagnant. But today, having said that, the kind of network that is available out there, the kind of sources that are available out there, be it on social media, be it YouTube or these blogs that they are, bartenders really get a chance to evolve, and they are doing it. That's how the word mixologist came up,
Mhm.
because bartenders used to go out. I know of so many of such bartenders who passed out from our academy and today are doing so well. Today they have become the top mixologists. They are the ones who are curating the menus. They are
Mhm.
the ones who are taking interest, sitting with the chef, sitting with the owners, making them try. Okay, this is what we've tried, this is what we made, this is the cost to it, and everything is intellect. Tomorrow, a cocktail can be made, would be wow. But if in fact the owner thinks the other way down, that making a cocktail, what's my cost to it? The CDC also is important. Today, bartenders can come up with something lavish. He might be just selling only one drink a day, not more. But more than that, what happens is that if you really know that I need to play in about 30-35% as a cost. See, this is not a wedding, it's a bar. Your things are being sold. When it comes to weddings, you have a free hand. But when it comes to bar, you really need to know your cost. So if you know that you need to have 30% to play in, because then there are overheads, then there's cost involved of salaries, then your rentals and everything. So if a bartender knows his basics of how to calculate cost, that really would help him to make his recipes knows the right way of approaching the chef, approaching the owner, making them understand, okay, this is what, if you try and do it in the right way, it will come out really well. Like for example, if a Thai restaurant, a bartender is a bartender who will just make cocktail made in the menu. But if he's a mixologist who has some experience, who's traveled, he will sit with the chef. He will try and bring out the kitchen in the bar. He will start using the food items, what the chef is using to make Thai food, and try and make Thai cocktails. Like I haven't seen so many bartenders out there, they make nice pina coladas in a Thai restaurant. But why can't you take the Thai paste, the Thai curry paste, use it with coconut and make a Thai pina colada? It can be done, but it's just that you need to evolve. You need to sit, understand with the chef as well. You need to also sit with him and try and know that what is his opinion about a cocktail, and that's how you can start developing cocktails. That's how you can start developing and growing in life.
Mm-hmm. All right, so maybe I'll summarize as we go on, and at this point I'd like to kind of point out to our viewers, so what you're exactly saying is, one is a bartender needs to understand their environment, so they have a select range of ingredients available to them. They need to understand their audience. They need to understand
The cost.
the cost, of course. And these are the factors of the environment in which a bartender sits.
Yes.
That kind of makes that's what really makes the playing field, and that's what it consists of. And from this playing field or canvas is really where a bartender starts to create. So
yes.
Can you take us through that canvas? You mentioned the part about recipes and curating those recipes. Do bartenders feel that they have ownership of these recipes? Do they feel that it is their job to create these recipes and hand them over to a restaurant owner, or in your case, to a brand? Could you speak of some of the work that you've done with brands to kind of curate recipes and cocktails, including their alcohol in a drink?
Well, honestly, see, firstly, we today as India, I mean, what do you say that, second copy, first copy, third copy, you understand the words I'm trying to use you? There's just something that comes in from UK, US, like a bag. And in a fraction of a second in India, it can be copied. Okay? Same is with the recipe part. I remember a few years back, we had done some recipe for one of a juice brand. Okay? What we did is we studied, we got onto the net, we got the flavors down, we tried to develop the recipes. But what happened was, post a year down the line, the recipes got copied. See, there's nothing like you can patronize a recipe or you can have a copyright on the recipe. Being India, changing of ml 1 or 2 mls over here, like I might be using fresh watermelon to make my cocktail. Someone else would like the cocktail, go into his bar, use watermelon juice. I'm using fresh mint, might use mint syrup. He's changed the name. We really can't do anything because there is no such law that develops. A small example that I would like to share, as I work with all the liquor companies, there was one cocktail that became very famous in one of the big festivals called NH7. Mm-hmm. That was DNG, Doers and Ginger Ale. All right. But what happened was that cocktail became so famous with Doers whiskey that other liquor companies started using it. Again, because they were making one with Doers, other liquor companies making with one of their own whiskeys. But the idea was pretty simple, to use ginger ale because whiskey goes really well with ginger ale. So all they did was, Doers was with one portfolio, some other one had some other portfolio, and they changed the portfolio. They added their whiskey, they added ginger ale. The garnish was with a lemon wedge, and it started doing well. But now, can these two companies fight? No, because there is nothing like a patronize. You really can't say that whiskey and ginger ale only becomes a copyright with one liquor company.
Yeah.
On the same lines, I can just tell you that it same goes with recipe. Like recently, on the similar note, we had done a wedding in the month of Jan in one of which city? I think it was in Udaipur. What we did was we created some nice gin and tonic bar. We had done a beautiful display of how gin and tonic can be served. Normally, a gin and tonic is served in a Collins glass. Correct?
All
we
right.
did it in a gin goblet with some nice cucumber, mandarins and stuff, and different types of garnishes. Simple. I mean, I would have appreciated if that guy would have taken the idea, done it into his event, clicked a picture and posted it out. All he did was he picked up the photo from our Facebook page, posted on his Facebook page saying that this is done for my event. And when people are asking him, "Kahan kya bolta? 1 महीने पहले मैंने event पे किया था." When we tried reaching out to that guy, one of my wedding planners really helped me out to get to that guy, and he's like, I'll speak to him. I'm like, sure, do that. What happened was that when I got in touch with that guy, he like, sir, मैंने post नहीं किया था, my friend posted it from my Facebook page. I'm like, you are the owner of the company. You are telling me that you've just copied something from my page and posted it out. And when we send him a snapshot, he kind of bluntly blocked us. So, this is what I mean. Recipe is far away. In
Yeah.
fact, pictures that get copied, you just see a picture, you change the label, and you do it. We try and create recipes like being in one of the leading I would say that being one of the leading bar management companies in India. We have an R&D division. We have about 8 of our trainers who every day sit day in day out, get some ingredients, develop our own flavors, develop our own syrups, develop our own mixes, create recipes, and we teach it to our bartenders. Now what happens is, as a person, we are trying to spread knowledge, so we'll definitely teach this to our bartenders. The moment these bartenders go out, they will start practicing it in their own outlets. So in a way, we really can't copyright a recipe. But all I would like to add on to is that you should not, if you are using our recipes and doing it, even if you don't want to give us due credit, make it in your own way, fine tune it a little, and then show it as yours, rather than just bluntly copy pasting a picture or a recipe, something from our thing, and going out. And again, like a simple thing like a Thai dish, a Thai curry is not going to get patronized, because it's a recipe, everyone loves it, every single outlet today makes who does Thai. It's not going to happen. Being India, I don't really see that happening.
Well,
For sure.
I must say, Pranav, when you said yes to this conversation, you said, lawyer Saab, go easy on me. Don't bring in I promised I wouldn't bring in too much of legal jargon. But I mean, most of what you're saying and the legal touch points you're talking about are pretty solid. And what I really like is what you mentioned towards the end, which is you mentioned this kind of norms-based approach of going out. One is, you mentioned there's a community. You were able to get through to the person who kind of infringed on your photographs of your display, which I must say looked lovely, and I could tell. I think some of them even had the watermark, but that didn't stop someone from blatantly pulling out the entire layout of those photographs and putting them up on
the same lines.
page.
I would like to just add, sorry to cut you, that's not thing. I mean, today you are I think law in terms of the IP. If you remember, I told you we have 2 IPs that we do. One is Bacardi Bartender's Day Out that we started 4 years back. You won't believe what happened last year. Last year, one of the guys in some part of India towards east, we get a forward on our office group saying that someone is doing Bacardi Bartender's Day Out somewhere in Sikkim or someplace, Shillong or somewhere. I don't remember where. We tried reaching out we went on his Facebook page, and we saw that guy had, I would say, the guts to go out there, just copy our own IP and say that he's doing an event. When I reached out to that guy, he like, sir, हमने कुछ नहीं किया. हमने तो यहाँ के अपने एरिया के एक 80-100 बार्टेंडर को बुलाया. हमने बार्टेंडर डे आउट इवेंट किया. हमने बकाडी को फोन किया. बकाडी ने बोला, ओके, हम अल्कोहल स्पॉन्सर कर देंगे. And he officially on his Facebook page announced Bacardi Bartender's Day Out being done there. We didn't even thought of knowing that Bacardi Bartender's Day Out is an IP that belongs to us. We have registered the property. It's an intellectual property that belongs to Cocktails and Dreams, Mumbai. It's an intellectual property that belongs to Vijaypal Rawat, who is the owner or director of our company. But today, because of social media, I came to know that such event is happening somewhere in India. What if I wasn't connected? That event would have happened, could have done, and I could have done nothing about it. So today, that really, puts us in a spot where how do we try and, get things legalized, get in a way where everyone works together in each other's favor.
Yeah. So
that's what
I'll take that as my cue to kind of make a few suggestions here.
Please.
And the first being on the example that you gave of the DNG, the very popular DNG cocktail, which I've seen a lot of people drink in their N87 mugs. So
yes, the steel mugs.
Yes, and I think what you have there is you've really created a trend and a trend that everyone else wants to follow. Just like your Bartender's Day Out IP, I think the space of events and experiential, and we will talk about that in the last session of this series with Deepak Chowdhury and Subramaniam Iyer, when we'll talk about how the different aspects of intellectual property come into an event, and that's an aggregated kind of experience. But here, you're creating that experience yourself. So it's not about aggregation. Of course, there are many elements and many moving parts that you're putting out there when you're serving or presenting a drink. But what I'd like to get at is, you mentioned the word DNG, and what a DNG stands for is Dewar's and
Ginger ale.
ginger ale.
Yeah.
When someone else or another alcohol company is putting out a DNG, one is that trademark firstly would you'd be registered to the brand. So when someone else is trying to put out a DNG, not from a IP or a trademark perspective, that's not really how I'd see you kind of enforcing the drink name. But the way you'd enforce it is from a consumer standpoint. So, for example, I walk into a bar and I order a Jaeger bomb, and most Jaeger bombs consumers assume that that's Jägermeister plus Red Bull, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Imagine you have a restaurant that's trying to fit a Jaeger bomb at an extremely low MRP, and is also trying to control costs and make a margin on that. And instead of Red Bull, they use, let's say, a Cloud9 or an Ocean 8 or another energy drink apart from Red Bull. What essentially you're doing is you're kind of cheating the customer, and it's a consumer protection violation more than a trademark violation there. So from a consumer protection violation there, as a brand, the brand that you were expecting as a consumer was a Red Bull, but what you really got wasn't that. So, for example, when you mentioned pina coladas, it dates back to when those recipes came out, and what were the means in which you could incorporate more rums into cocktails and bring rums into the forefront of the cocktail world, and not just from a tropical standpoint. Bacardi in the past has gone out and enforced overseas, not in India, of course, but I believe we will get there, and I believe we can get
Yes.
there soon. They have gone out and enforced a series of cocktails that they've put out there and named it in a similar manner, like a DNG. They've
Yes.
come out with Bacardi Buzz cocktails, Bacardi Breezer cocktails, things like that.
Yes.
And just like they've enforced a range, if you look at the way you're taking recipes from what you're creating behind the bar and the R&D
Yes.
setup that you've got at your school, at your center, it's a similar manner in which these recipes are kind of created within an existing alcoholic beverage company. And
Yeah.
the only difference is, one is that strategy. And to dwell on that strategy for a minute, it starts with that thought of how you've developed that thought. Where is it coming from? What is the audience that it's going to, where it's going to be delivered, and really how we're going to protect that. So some of the biggest recipes in the world, you rightly said, the most popular ones can't be copyrighted. You can't really copyright a recipe. The only sense in which you can copyright a recipe is when it's reduced to a form of writing or a fixation like a book,
Yes.
a journal, or you take it into a series where a chef is kind of mixing those ingredients together.
Yes.
Chefs also, if you look at chefs, and
No,
there's that.
to add that,
Yeah,
sorry to cut you. To add that, you really know, when you just gave me a live example of Jaeger bomb,
yeah,
I would like to add you that there a friend of mine works with Jaeger, very very good friend. He's like the brand head of Jaeger. Through him, I came to know that there was one outlet that was selling Jaeger bomb, but had never bought Jaeger from them. Probably had bottle or two of Jaeger, and they were using something called as Jacob Steiner,
okay,
which was not even Jaeger. So, I mean, Red Bull is an add on.
yeah,
While you're trying to sell, what you're saying is correct, but like copyright can't be done. But even there are people in India who not even buying the brand Jaeger, but are still selling that brand by using some other brand. So Red Bull, Dalo, Nedalo didn't really make a sense. You really
yeah,
don't even have Jaeger to add that in. So what you're saying is totally correct. It
yeah.
does make a lot of sense.
And therefore, I mean, you need to start see, because if you think about it, um, a company making a beefeater gin, or let's take gins for example. It's a mixture of botanicals, and you look at other brews, they're brewed in a certain environment and certain steps. What they're really using there is protecting those recipes, protecting that procedure and that process through trade secrets. Now, trade secrets, that begins with having a really strong IP strategy, and that's what I said. It begins with your thinking. enforcing non-disclosure agreements within your team. It's just like you would think of a KFC or a
Yes.
Coca-Cola. Those recipes are some of the most popular and widely used recipes, or I mean, widely used by the brand themselves, or widely distributed products in the world, and yet they have certain norms and protocol through which they maintain the secrecy of those recipes. And mind you, I know in your case, you're trying to further knowledge, you're trying to create new recipes on a daily basis and put them out there. You're trying to create
Yes.
recipes within the canvas that a restaurant owner or a festival promoter has asked you to create, or a brand has asked you to create. So I respect that. And my suggestion there in that course is you have to be a partner with that brand that you're creating it for. You have to be a partner with the restaurant owner that you're creating it for. And the most important in this case is you have to be a partner with the consumer. And the consumer in that sense is really the biggest partner. So um,
Sure.
for example, when consumer protection or infringement and that sense in consumer products um, are seen as violations, you'll see the most attention a consumer takes, maybe not with a counterfeit product, which is a handbag or a shoe, but
Mm.
there were reports at one point that about between 20 to 40%, they couldn't really estimate the amount of counterfeit medicines that were entering into the system. Now, the reason I'm giving you this example, Pranav, is because if you think about it, cocktails and medicines kind of have came from the similar trajectory, where some of the
Yes,
first
exactly.
bartenders were compounders, putting in a
Yeah.
mixture together, bottling it, putting their label onto it, and sending that out into the market. So you're looking not just at alcohol brands, but you're looking at companies like pharmaceuticals that are putting out their product, which is medicines, tablets, out in the market, and even that's being infringed. But for example, a consumer, so it requires a change in the consumer mindset. Of course, it also requires, and that's why I mentioned you need to be a partner with your consumer, most important above all, not just for you, even for the brand, and that's what
Yes.
brands always want to do. Is because at the end of the day, consumers feel if they receive counterfeit medicines, that's a huge violation. But they don't consider a violation like this to be right up there with a violation on receiving counterfeit medicines. So that's the whole mindset change that needs to come about in the
That
industry. And
that somewhere needs to start with the first step to be
yes.
taken. On the same line, if I have to tell you that being in India, being a country where there are about lakhs of bartenders, where there are about big cities like Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Calcutta, Hyderabad, Chennai, and second line tiers of city that are coming in right now, together, there is some sort of a unity that needs to come in, where we need to, in fact, let me ask you, in terms of law, there is an association,
Mhm.
bar there's an association for lawyers by
Yep.
the name Bar Association of India,
Mhm.
correct? I've
Yep.
heard it somewhere. Unlike that, there is no association that even the bartending community has today,
True.
because here, there is so much involvement of every single person, that who will be the chairperson of the bar association, of the bartending association in India, who will be the secretary, how would you want to run it, the ego clashes, the mindsets would. So here people need to put things set aside,
Mhm.
thinking, okay, this is an association, where there are multiple associations in India trying to form, and we also trying to help them by standing by them and telling them, okay, whatever said and done, the association needs to come, and that's need to start working towards the betterment of the community, betterment of the bartenders going ahead, betterment of giving mixology. Like on the same lines, like you said, the copyright is not possible. Today, as Cocktails and Dreams, we have our own journal.
Mhm.
About 4 years back, we developed our own journal, where we accumulated knowledge from a lot of people who are working with us, our entire office team. Second, what we did was, we got a lot of knowledge from different books that we used to refer. We also got a lot of knowledge from the net.
Mhm.
Idea was that we wanted to accumulate, like for example, a student comes to us and becomes a bartender. Idea was to make him sit and say, okay, you're a bartender, this is a journal, you need to refer to this.
Right.
What we did was, we just made a journal. Two things that we did not do: we did not sell it,
Yep.
one. Second, we did not copyright it. Why? Because the information that was being passed in that journal didn't belong to us.
Of course.
We as a team just accumulated the knowledge, put it into a book, bind it, and gave it to a student saying, this is our journal. And we in fact mentioned that this book can't be copyright, we can't sell it. Why? Because the information doesn't belong to us. By taking your information, putting it into a book, we really can't sell it. So that's two things that we did. Having said that, that's a similar thing that we want to go and develop. That let's try and form, like you correctly said, that it needs to the right example you gave of was some medicines. And medicines really need to have into that place where people don't want to have the wrong kind of medicine. But going forward, if that the first step would be that association going ahead, and the need of saying, okay, we really want to go out there so that our drinks stay in the right way, it comes from the right channel, it goes to the right people, and end of the day is the consumer who are going to consume it. So if the consumer is kind of happy, everyone's going to be happy.
All right. So I get that. I think what you're saying is the bartenders as a community is still in forms of associations, are still at a nascent stage where we've just kind of come about this growing pan India, and there are companies that now want to venture into it. I'm guessing there are institutes that have propped up all over. But I'll give you an example of what we discussed yesterday with our guest Akash Mehta, who's a stand-up comedian, and we found that there was some sort of circle of influence between the senior comedians, and also, I mean, and in time, as you grow in terms of stage hours or number of gigs that you've done, you kind of rise in this kind of circle of influence, and you're able to kind of enforce norms, which are what we found with Akash, a little more powerful than the law written in the statute book. So they were able to enforce certain Me Too oriented provisions. When there was that whole Me Too wave, they blocked out certain comedians who they felt suspect, and they were able to enforce those norms. But I see what you're saying is you're kind of yet to develop those norms. You've kind of developed this circuit, but kind of the formalizing of the circuit.
Trying to, like, simple question I want to ask you in terms of the comedian. How many comedians would be there in India?
About
put together
500, maybe 600 that do it as a profession.
600?
No.
That is the number of bartenders that pass out from our academy every year. Oh. So you can imagine the kind of bartenders that are going in India. There are so many bartenders who are just freelancers by work. Like I, for my example, I when I was working with Renaissance Pawai, there was a guy who was very influential. There was a guy called Parmeshwar. He was not a bartender. He was very good with flair, the art of throwing bottles, juggling. Slowly, steadily became a bartender. He, I think, stick to Renaissance till the time he was the assistant manager. And today, he owns a couple of banquets in Bombay. He was not a bartender. He never had some education studies. He never went to a bartending school or a hotel management school. Here, if there's 600 odd bartenders, or 600 comedians to be precise, it's easy to control. With, I would say, nothing less than about 2 lakh bartenders in India, across at various levels and channels are there. I mean, about 1,000 clubs in Bombay, minimum is what I would say, or I would say about 2,000 odd, each with an average of 8 to 10 bartenders. We are looking at about just 10,000 good professional bartenders only in India. So what we are, as you said, we need to take that first step, and we are working towards it, trying to legalize things, trying to probably, I don't know if it's going to happen till the time I am alive, but probably we are going to take that steps and try and ensure that the coming generation of bartenders will understand that it's really necessary to try and get things in place where everyone tries and talks the same channel. Like you said that the comedians blocked him. For us to block a bartender, what will I do? I will sue him up from a certain place that he's working in. He will go out, probably find another club, switch off his Facebook account, Instagram account, change his mobile number, stays in Bombay, moved on to Pune, and gets a knob of a bartender over there. So, things are really difficult, but yes, baby steps are being taken. We are trying to move towards it. And there are people like you, like I said, now that I know that you have a law angle to it, we are also trying to get in touch with people like you who will help us to form this thing, legalize thing that will help the country grow as a team.
Yeah. I think that's the right direction to move in. If you're moving towards there, what eventually will happen is you can enforce as an association or as a union. You've seen how they don't have the force. I mean, they don't have the enforceability by law or de juris. Um, and when I say that, I mean the bylaws that associations do write, the standards that they do uphold, or standards of conduct or of practice. But it's all in the enforcement.
Yes.
You're as good as the way you're able to enforce. And
Yes.
like you said, I think you will reach that stage where through the community you will be able to at least be able to one hold on to certain intellectual property and help your partners, one being the brands, two being the festival promoters, and three being the restaurateurs, um, hold on to what it is their creation, at least for a certain while.
No, it will
If
definitely apply certain while. While, say, for
Yeah,
example, today you are a restaurant owner
yeah,
and I am an association with a certain name, and I would say that tomorrow you come to me and tell me that these bartenders were caught stealing or drinking alcohol. An association will talk. We'll ensure that the bartender doesn't get a job or his salary is cut. Tomorrow, if as an association, and if I have about 20,000 bartenders in my community, and if I go to a liquor company and tell them, okay, this is what you need to do to upgrade the skills, why wouldn't a liquor company or a restaurant owner or a bar owner accept us? They definitely will. But I mean, what you and me are talking, we're trying to get into that people and trying to reach out to that people saying, okay, this is the reason. That's precisely the reason. And I said that, we would need help from people like you all to guide us through it. Okay, these are the baby steps that you need to take that would really help you in growing up.
of course, education and educating the wider audience
Yes.
would be the answer, and that trumps all. Whether you're enforcing through market, through architecture, through norms or law, education is really the pillar that stops infringement. But since we don't have enough of that, these problems will keep cropping up. I'd like to come and give you one last example before
Oh,
we summarize or before we take a question from the audience. Is look at how chefs, you look at your intellectual property and how, just like your bartenders are evolving, I would say look at your creations and how they can evolve. If you look at chefs, excuse me, when they come up with new recipes, what they will do is it goes into a certain cycle where they develop, they have their R&D, they're testing, they'll do a bit of tasting sessions and then put it out onto a menu. But what happens is when they're changing that menu, they'll kind of choose to keep certain dishes
yes.
and certain recipes in the kitchen and move some of them out. They reach a stage where when they want to put out a cookbook, they'll kind of pick from some of those recipes that have moved out, and these are the Michelin star,
Michelin stars,
Michelin.
the top
And
line ones.
yes, the top ones who will kind of take this recourse of putting out. So you'll not really see a new recipe come out and be debuted in a book,
Of course.
which isn't, I mean, a recipe that's not available in restaurants yet. You'll always see that recipes that have gone through this course of being available in restaurants have then gone into a cookbook. So it's tried, tested, become popular, and then gone out there. Whereas when it comes to dishes, you'll always see that a certain restaurant, and if you think about it, Pranav, I think this is where bartenders as a community should go. If you see chefs, a Michelin star or a hat is linked to the chef and not to the restaurant. So the moment a chef leaves the restaurant has to be reviewed and re-accredited to get that hat back. And I think that's the future for the bartending industry, and that's the future where it will go. Maybe you talk to a brand.
On the same lines, I would
Mhm.
like to, what you said is correct. The
Yeah.
name goes with the brand. I mean, or the brand goes with the name. Uh, on a similar note, in India, there was a time when there have been a lot of bartending competitions. I participated in a couple of them. Honestly, I participated in two of them. I didn't win the first one. The second one, when I passed away, I won. I represented India. I came back. I kind of left bartending. On a similar note, what you're saying is that today a Michelin chef moves out, you have to rebrand it. Here we also in fact trying to tell people that for example, if I'm a bartender and I won a competition for certain liquor company, all right, so
Mhm.
today let's say I won a competition for a Bacardi. When I was in 2006, I won the competition, I represent India, I came back. Now today in India, my idea would be, as going forward, I would want to say that that bartender can't participate in any other competitions for the coming 1 year. Why?
Mhm.
Because today he's representing a brand called Bacardi. Tomorrow, if I won a Diageo competition or some other liquor company competition, can I represent that brand? No, then what
right?
is the kind of loyalty that bartender has towards Bacardi? Because
True.
Bacardi invested time in him. Bacardi ensured that, once you win the India League, you go to international, go out there, your Bacardi trainers help me, develop my skills, and I go represent India and I come back. But that 2 months down the line, I'm getting a chance to see another bartending competition has come up from some other liquor company. And over there, see, I'm participating, and God forbid what I win, what is my loyalty towards both the companies? There is no loyalty.
True.
So that is something that, like you said, educating people, making them realize that this is what needs to go. Like, in fact, I spoke to a few liquor companies. I told them that, we're just having a general talk with the brand team and stuff, that I asked them a simple question. This guy has won for you. You're sending him to a next country. He comes back, he goes and participate with the Y competition and goes to another country. What is the loyalty you have for him or he has
Mhm.
for you? So
Yeah.
that's something we'll probably
Do,
develop when we have an association or the educating part
do
of
you
it.
think? Do you think you will? This is the year we see, or maybe in the coming future, we will see kind of alcohol brands endorsing bartenders and kind of
They are,
making them their
they
brand
are,
ambassadors on ground.
they are. There are a lot of bartenders, like a friend of mine. We started bartending together. His name is Afzal. Today he's a brand ambassador for DI Joe,
Okay.
and he's doing so well. Today, what happened is about this started about 4 years back, 4 or 5 years back, when each so we work with a lot of liquor companies, and we used to do event on their behalf. So what happened was that they needed that face who can only talk about a certain brand.
Hmm.
So currently, you are a brand ambassador for Diageo, and when you go out there, you're going to talk. You're not. I mean, why just liquor companies today? I know people who are brand ambassadors for brands like Tonic, Swami. I know person they are doing so well,
Yeah.
but they also are brand ambassadors, so that when they go out, they are able to speak about Tonic. They're able to speak about Swami and why Swami is different from other tonics. Let's not name any, but okay, this is what I am good at.
True.
I'm not going to compare you with any other tonic, but this is what Swami is good at. This is how when Swami mixed with gin or vodka will taste. So yes, brand ambassadors are coming, but again, that streamlining really needs to help it.
All
It
right.
really needs to come in.
No, and on that note, I'd like to kind of summarize what we've spoken about today.
Just to
Where I,
add one thing,
yeah,
we spoke about recipes being robbed. We spoke about IPs being robbed. We
yeah,
spoke about people jumping. You can you tell? I mean, I would like to share one thing. A brand bar solution has been copied, man. I mean, trust me. There's one company. I mean, really, they just. It's like Nike था.
mhm,
किसी ने नाइकी का जूता लिया, उसके आगे जस्ट नाइकी लगा के जूता बना के बेच रहा है.
yeah,
नाइकी सू कर देगा.
mm,
So that's what someone did with Bar Solution. They picked up the name Bar Solutions, added one adjective to it, and they started doing it. The moment we came to know, we filed a legal case against him. He like, जो करना है कर ले. क्या होगा? So things in a law system also somewhere needs to change. Things
yes,
need
I
to
agree.
fasten up. Things need to be quick. I mean, there needs to be time where obviously you know the law better than I do. Definitely you do, and the amount of cases that are pending in terms of this legal action. I'm not talking about the thefts and the robberies and the ancillaries that added, but when it comes to these legal things, if these things can be fastened up, there can be fast court cases where that things can be legalized and channelized. People who are doing such things will come to know, okay, if we try and rob, I mean, take a bartending bar solutions is a big brand, but then we send in a legal notice and they kind of, now the legal thing is going on, but he's not scared, he's still doing it. So recipes to bahut dur ki baat hai. I mean, it's really far away
So
what we're saying.
I think you summarized it better than me. But to answer this question,
Please, I would want to
Pranav,
hear the law side of it.
all it takes is think about it like this. All it takes is that one landmark case. That you have one moment where it's all over the news, where you it's just that one case which is the turning point, and you. And that the reason why it becomes a landmark case is for example, it really changes the landscape. It really changes people's mindsets. It kind of resets the interpretation of that law, and then also resets kind of the enforcement and execution of that law. So of course, there is delay. Our courts are burdened, and that's why I said enforcing through norms. I would see in certain communities, and the communities we're talking to on a daily basis, like the one you to the example of what you spoke about, brands endorsing bartenders or taking part in different competitions. Tomorrow, we're talking to tattoo artist Samir, um, and you will see there that uh, there are brands that they kind of represent and they are ambassadors of, and they're only able to use their product
Of course.
out there and only talk about their product. But coming back to what you said, and that's also tattoo artists internationally have kind of enforced that whole copying inspiration very differently. And what you it's very similar to what you said earlier, and this is in summary again. What you said earlier was, if you're taking my recipe, you should make it better, or make it suited to your environment, or actually change something that reinvents the recipe or puts it in a new light, that I can say, wow, I feel great that you've taken my recipe and done this to this. We saw that with comedians also yesterday. They kind of, if you take my joke and kind of turn it into something 10 times
Better.
funnier, or into a new avatar that makes it more palatable to the audience, or makes it more laughable, I can't say much to you. And now, answering your question of uh, where do we go in courts, I think, the fastest are injunctions, where you can stop people from debuting certain drinks at festivals, or it's just that one filing, that one notice, that one injunction. And Pranav, a lot of these things, and people think IP, fortunately in India, IP can be enforced, and is through criminal action, because infringement is a criminal offense.
Of
And when
course.
you what you can do is go to the nearest police station, and take this with a pinch of salt, because depending on which police station it is, you'll firstly
Yes.
have to kind of talk to them and convince them that they do have the power to enforce this, and then get them to enforce this. But now there are IP awards in India that award police chowkis or beats, or stations, on the basis of how they're enforcing IP. So you have, in this system, just a single person with with a script, a writer with a script, can go out and enforce it against the biggest media house, and we're talking about criminal prosecution here. So
Uh,
the same way, you do have that protection in the law. All it takes is for you to see it through, and I know that's the toughest part, because um, and but you will reap the benefits, although you will see them after a few years. um,
so
you will reap the benefits, and I think you will be known for that defining moment when it changed. And that will act as a deterrent from people copying your recipes. That will act as a deterrent from people taking your brand names, your drink names. Sorry, I take that back. Not recipes so much, but your brand names, your display pictures, your arrangement, and the way you've designed your
so
bars and your decor.
having what you said, that I mean, though it sounds too tempting, I know it's going to be a difficult step. Like you said, that one judgment. So I put the ball in your court. Let's together as a tape, because till now I knew Rafael as the brand head, who did all the concerts and festivals with me, managed the best of the artists. But now I know the other angle of Rafael had, and he's doing the law. So like when we last met, we discussed that we should look at something. And yes, I would definitely want to reach out to you and understand that legal procedure, because we as a team also are wanting to do something for the industry, but in the right way, where tomorrow no one comes, or probably doesn't backfire to us saying, okay, this is what you're doing, but this is not the way it should have been done.
Mhm.
This is what you're doing, and this is the right way of doing it. I mean, we would love to have people support us and say us that, okay, now I know that I have a friend by the name Rafael, who understands IP, who understands the legal angle of so many other things related to bars and mixology and IPs and a brand like Bar Solutions. And there is that one, like you said, that one judgment required to tell people that, okay, this also can be changed. So yeah, we look forward at collaborating with you again in due course of time, and understanding that yes, if this can be done, our idea is that it has to be done for the betterment of the country,
Mhm.
not for me to get that. Okay, for who was the first person to get that judgment out on bartending? It was not me. Tomorrow, if someone is being done, they can reach out to our association. With your help, we can try and help that person out as well. So
Mhm.
definitely will look forward to that one.
Yeah,
Definitely look forward.
and on that note, I look forward to it as well. But on that note, I think that's it's great that we've reached this point.
Yeah.
Um, that's a pleasant note to end this conversation on. Thank you so much, Pranav, for being here today. If you tuned in late, we were discussing in the series called Can with Tinnuts. We were discussing mixology with Pranav, and now maybe the pun of how did we lose protection between two bars makes sense to a lot more people. Thank you for joining in today on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube and on Zoom. Thank you, Pranav, for being here with us
It was just
today.
a pleasure. All pleasure is all mine, is all I say.
And what I'd also like to tell all our viewers today is that if you look at um, what we are doing in the Canned with Tin Nuts series, we're trying to reach this exact point with every speaker that we're having here. So right now you can see the schedule for the rest of the week. Tomorrow we have Andre Tully and Samir Patange with us on this show, and they're going to be speaking about um, the norms enforced intellectual property in the tattoo and body art space. So do tune in. I'm going to leave the schedule up for all of you to look at this here. Thanks again, Pranav. Thank you to all our viewers.
Pleasure. Thank you, man. Pleasure having you. Are we done?